Throughout human history, we have faced some real tough times, haven't we? Nuclear disasters that left cities uninhabitable, floods capable of washing away buildings, much less the humans who lived in them, out of control winds, and even fires that burn without end. Are you ready to take the plunge down the iceberg of mankind's most horrible disasters iceberg? Stick around, because we are in for a roller coaster that'll keep you on the edge of your seat until the very end. Titanic sinking, an iceberg disaster. On April 14th, 1912, the RMS Titanic, considered an unsinkable marvel, collided with an iceberg in the North Atlantic, leading to a catastrophic rupture on its hull. The disaster resulted from a combination of factors, including design flaws and inadequate safety features. The ship's construction utilized steel plates and rivets that were not of the highest quality, making the Titanic vulnerable to the impact of the iceberg. Additionally, the number of lifeboats on board was insufficient to accommodate all passengers and crews, exacerbating the loss of life. Despite receiving multiple ice warnings, the Titanic's crew was unable to alter course in time. The distress signals sent by the sinking ship were met with delayed responses from nearby vessels, including the SS Californian, leading to intense scrutiny and debate about the handling of the emergency situation. The evacuation process was chaotic and poorly organized. While the woman and children first protocol was enforced, communication breakdowns and lack of clear instructions resulted in lifeboats being launched under capacity, leaving many passengers stranded on the sinking ship. The survivors' accounts reflect the harrowing experiences endured during the sinking, highlighting the bravery and tragedy witnessed that night. The aftermath prompted significant changes in maritime safety regulations, leading to the establishment of the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea. Ongoing explorations of the Titanic wreckage site have yielded valuable insights into the conditions of the ship at the time of its sinking. However, various mysteries persist, such as the exact sequence of events leading to the collision and the actions of nearby vessels in response to the distress signals. The legacy of the Titanic disaster extends beyond the tragedy itself, serving as a poignant reminder of the human cost of maritime disasters and the subsequent improvements in safety regulations that aim to prevent similar catastrophes. Chernobyl nuclear disaster, catastrophic fallout. On April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Pripyat, Soviet Union, suffered a catastrophic event during a safety test at Reactor 4. A combination of human errors and reactor design flaws led to a steam explosion, causing the release of a substantial amount of radioactive material. The immediate aftermath witnessed firefighters attempting to extinguish the radioactive inferno, unaware of the lethal danger. Government silence initially concealed the scale of the disaster, raising suspicions about motives and delays in disclosure. The radioactive cloud spread across Europe, leading to the world's realization of the nuclear nightmare. However, the full extent of the catastrophe remained veiled by suppressed reports and downplayed numbers. The abandoned city of Pripyat, frozen in time, stands as a chilling testimony to the sudden evacuation and the city's haunting silence. Beneath the visible destruction lies a deeper layer of heroism. Stories of the Chernobyl divers who faced lethal radioactive water and the liquidators who cleaned up the contamination, later suffering from illnesses shrouded in the bureaucratic denial. Nature's surprising resilience in reclaiming the contaminated zone, where wildlife now thrives in the absence of human presence, raises intriguing questions about the relationship between humanity and the environment. The sarcophagus, a containment structure erected to encase the remains of Reactor 4, symbolizes the ongoing danger with its cracks and leaks, a persistent reminder of the unresolved problem of nuclear waste. Chernobyl remains a chilling narrative of human error, heroism, and the hidden dangers of nuclear disasters, serving as a stark reminder of the fine line between controlling atomic energy and falling victim to its destructive potential. Pompeii eruption, Vesuvius's wrath. In 79 AD, the city of Pompeii, nestled at the base of Mount Vesuvius, faced its demise when the volcano violently erupted. The eruption led to the rapid release of ash and pumice, burying the city under a thick layer of volcanic debris within 24 hours. The excavation of Pompeii centuries later revealed a haunting snapshot of Roman life frozen in time. Bodies preserved in ash depict the desperation of the city's inhabitants during their final moments, with poignant casts bearing witness to the horror of the catastrophe. The discovery of bodies near the city gates suggests attempted escape, raising questions about the fate of those who sought refuge beyond the city's boundaries. The eruption also exposed human nature, exemplified by the unearthing of a hoard of valuables, prompting contemplation about people's priorities in the face of impending disaster. Mount Vesuvius, the force behind the calamity, not only devastated but also preserved Pompeii, providing glimpses into ancient Roman civilization through well-preserved artifacts. Pompeii's story continues to captivate as ongoing excavations uncover new mysteries and untold stories, while also serving as a stark reminder of human vulnerability to natural disasters and the unpredictability of nature's forces. Great Fire of London, rebirth from ashes. The Great Fire of London began on September 2nd, 1666, sparked in Thomas Farriner's bakery on Pudding Lane. The city's wooden structures and narrow streets facilitated the rapid spread of the fire, exacerbated by strong winds. The fire raged for 4 days, devastating landmarks like St. Paul's Cathedral. The king and citizens battled the flames, while the disaster offered an opportunity for rebuilding a new, safer London with stone structures and improved firefighting systems. Despite the fire's ferocity, mysteries persist about the actual numbers of casualties, with official records conflicting with the estimated toll. The personal stories of the displaced remain partially untold, hinting at the human impact beyond recorded history. The monument, standing tall near the bakery where the fire began, symbolizes the tragedy's enduring impact and London's resilience in rising from the ashes. The Great Fire of London serves as a cautionary tale about neglect, emphasizing the importance of preparedness in the face of disasters. However, it also signifies hope, depicting a city that emerged stronger and more resilient from the devastation. Hindenburg disaster, catastrophic end of an airship. On May 6, 1937, the Hindenburg, a German Zeppelin, met a tragic fate at Naval Air Station Lakehurst, New Jersey, resulting in one of history's most calamitous airship disasters. A fiery inferno engulfed the massive airship in just 34 seconds, claiming 36 lives and leaving an undeniable mark on the course of aviation. The Hindenburg, lauded for its opulence and unparalleled transatlantic travel, descended into catastrophe as it approached its mooring mast. A series of sparks ignited the hydrogen that kept the airship aloft, resulting in a catastrophic explosion and subsequent fireball that consumed the vessel. The disaster prompted various theories regarding its cause, including speculation about an electrical storm sparking the fire, sabotage by anti-Nazi groups targeting the Zeppelin, or potential structural flaws intrinsic to the airship's design. Documented through iconic photographs and heart-wrenching radio broadcasts, The Hindenburg's fiery end seared a vivid image into public consciousness. Radio announcer Herbert Morrison's anguished cry, "Oh, the humanity!" remains an enduring testament to the shock and despair witnessed during the tragedy. Amidst the horror, tales of heroism emerged, with crew members risking their lives to save passengers, and ground staff displaying extraordinary bravery in rescuing survivors from the wreckage. The disaster escalated the decline of passenger airships and hastened the dominance of airplane travel in aviation history. The Hindenburg disaster stands as a poignant symbol of human ambition, technological risk, and the vulnerability of life. It continues to intrigue and provoke reflection on the fine line between achievement and catastrophic failure in the relentless pursuit of progress. Banqiao Dam failure, catastrophic chain reaction. The Banqiao Dam, situated in Henan Province, China, represented a feat of modern engineering, designed as a safeguard against floods. However, in August 1975, the dam faced an unprecedented catastrophe during Typhoon Nina. The typhoon unleashed an overwhelming deluge, testing the Banqiao Dam beyond its capacity. Subsequently, the dam collapsed under the pressure, releasing a colossal wave of 600 million cubic meters of water. The resultant flood devastated villages, claimed tens of thousands of lives, and left an irreversibly altered landscape in its wake. The initial failure triggered a chain reaction, leading to the collapse of smaller dams downstream. Each subsequent dam failure intensified the catastrophic flooding, exacerbating the scale of destruction and raising profound questions about the resilience of engineering against nature's fury. The aftermath witnessed staggering human suffering, with tens of thousands perishing in the initial flood and hundreds of thousands affected by ensuing famine and epidemics. Decades later, the Banqiao Dam collapse remains enveloped in official secrecy, leaving unanswered questions about the true causes and whether the disaster could have been prevented. The event serves as a haunting reminder of the profound power of nature and the limitations of human ambition when faced with natural forces. The Banqiao Dam's ruins stand as a somber testament to the tragedy, preserving the memory of lives lost and serving as a perpetual warning of the consequences when human endeavors confront the overwhelming might of nature. Peshtigo Fire, 1871, the Forgotten Inferno. Amidst the Great Chicago Fire on October 8, 1871, an even more devastating fire, known as the Peshtigo Fire, ravaged Peshtigo, Wisconsin. Yet this calamity is relatively obscure compared to its urban counterpart. The cause of the Peshtigo Fire remains uncertain. Some reports suggest it may have been a convergence of small fires amid dry, windy conditions, while others speculate about a comet or meteor shower igniting the landscape. Survivor accounts describe fire tornadoes and massive walls of flame, indicative of an extraordinary intensity that modern science attributes to a firestorm. The catastrophic blaze claimed an estimated 1,200 to 2,500 lives, although precise numbers remain elusive due to extensive incineration and a lack of official records. Survivors' chilling accounts reveal the unimaginable horror experienced during that night, where entire families perished and lives were irrevocably altered. The Peshtigo Fire coincided with the Great Chicago Fire, which likely overshadowed the Peshtigo tragedy. Moreover, the sheer scale of destruction and the remote location contributed to its relative obscurity. The absence of a singular narrative may have made it less appealing than the singular, dramatic story of the Chicago Fire. The fire's legacy serves as a stark reminder of nature's unpredictability and the delicate balance between human settlement and the wilderness. Every October, as the winds pick up and the air turns crisp, the memory of the Peshtigo fire is revived, a tale whispered by the flickering light of a campfire. The complexity of the Peshtigo fire weaves a tapestry of human experiences, natural phenomena, and historical narrative. It challenges historical memory and presents a poignant question: what secrets remain hidden in the ashes of forgotten fires? Halifax Explosion, 1917. A city asunder. The morning of December 6, 1917, marked a catastrophic event in Halifax, Nova Scotia, when the SS Mont Blanc, a French munitions ship, collided with the Norwegian vessel SS Imo in Halifax Harbor. The Mont Blanc, carrying high explosives for World War I battlefields, triggered a massive explosion that devastated the city, causing nearly 2,000 casualties and injuring thousands more. The explosion was one of the largest man-made non-nuclear blasts globally. Its impact obliterated buildings, created a harbor tsunami, and sent a shockwave shattering windows miles away. Heroic stories emerged amidst the chaos, such as telegraph operator Vince Coleman's sacrifice to send a warning, saving numerous lives. Questions surrounding the explosion's cause persisted. Some suspected wartime sabotage or espionage due to the sensitive cargo, while others debated possible negligence in navigation or safety protocols. The Mont Blanc's journey was marred by delays and signs of ill fate, raising concerns about allowing such hazardous cargo into a busy harbor. The Halifax explosion reshaped the city's landscape and altered urban planning and emergency response efforts. The trauma of that day remains deeply embedded in the city's identity, carried by survivors and their descendants. More than a century later, the Halifax explosion remains an enigmatic event, prompting reflection on its causes, lessons learned, and its place in history amid the turmoil of World War I. Johnstown Flood, 1889, a wave of destruction. Johnstown, Pennsylvania, in 1889, faced catastrophic destruction when the South Fork Dam collapsed on May 31, unleashing a 40-foot wall of water that obliterated the town in less than an hour. Debate continues regarding the dam's integrity and modifications by the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club, a group of wealthy industrialists. Despite concerns about the dam's condition, exceptional rainfall preceding the collapse made it unlikely to withstand such force, prompting questions about the culpability of human actions versus the forces of nature. The flood's aftermath brought tales of heroism and heartbreak, where families were torn apart, neighborhoods swept away, and lives lost. The disaster raised profound inquiries about responsibility, philanthropy, and government's role in disaster relief, prompting changes in dam engineering and construction. The legacy of the Johnstown flood serves as a somber reminder of the tragic balance between human ambition and nature's forces. More than a century later, it remains a subject of intrigue and speculation, questioning how such disasters could be prevented and what lessons history holds for our modern world. The Great Hinckley Fire, 1894, The Winds of Fate. On September 1st, 1894, Hinckley, a logging town in Minnesota, faced one of the most devastating fires in American history. Consuming over 400 square miles, the firestorm obliterated Hinckley and neighboring areas, claiming approximately 418 lives. But what transformed manageable fires into an uncontrollable inferno? The exceptionally hot and dry summer of 1894 created favorable conditions for fires. In the Pine County region, where the logging industry thrived, frequent small fires were common for land clearing. However, on that fateful September day, multiple small fires merged into an unstoppable force, driven by powerful winds and fueled by the parched, dense forest. Survivors witnessed the fire exhibiting peculiar behavior, generating its own weather with fire swirls and a dense black cloud that plunged the day into darkness. The unprecedented speed and intensity of the fire fueled speculation about its nature, sparking enduring legends and curiosity for over a century. As Hinckley succumbed to the flames, residents attempted desperate escapes. Trains served as a crucial evacuation method, yet one train, the Eastern Minnesota, became trapped amidst the flames, resulting in catastrophic casualties. The aftermath was a mosaic of bravery and tragedy, echoing the extraordinary ordeal faced by a community pushed to its limits. Following the fire's devastation, Hinckley lay in ruin, leaving a scarred landscape and unanswerable questions. How did the fire spread so rapidly and fiercely? Could preventative measures have averted this catastrophe, or was it an inevitable outcome of the prevailing forestry practices of the time? The Hinckley Fire led to reforms in fire management and forestry practices. However, the legacy of the fire endures as a multifaceted narrative encompassing human impact, natural disaster, and the enduring mystery of a fire that defied conventional explanation. Viant Dam Disaster, 1963, the Valley of Water. Nestled in Italy's Viant River Valley, the Viant Dam, completed in 1961, stood as an engineering marvel. Yet, just 2 years later, disaster struck. On October 9, 1963, a colossal landslide plunged into the reservoir, causing a massive wave that reached the dam, devastating the towns below and claiming nearly 2,000 lives. This tragedy was not merely a natural calamity, but a forewarned catastrophe overshadowed by human arrogance and negligence. Geologists and engineers have long debated Monte Toc stability, the mountain beside the dam. Ominous signs, including minor landscapes and rock shifts, foretold danger. Despite these warnings, they were disregarded, raising questions about engineering hubris, economic pressures, or an underestimation of the mountain's destructive potential. That fateful night, Longarone and nearby villages experienced a rumble of the landslide before a wave over 250 meters high crashed over the dam, obliterating everything in its path. Accounts from survivors detail unimaginable horror, depicting a wall of water and debris bearing down upon them relentlessly. The disaster's aftermath brought intense scrutiny and blame. Investigations highlighted human errors and oversights, emphasizing the known geological instability of Monte Toc and the perilously high reservoir levels. The Viant disaster left undeniable marks on the land and Italian people. The destroyed towns were never fully restored, serving as somber memorials. The dam remains, a colossal monument marking one of the 20th century's worst engineering failures. Questions persist about lives that could have been saved if warnings were heeded. Decades later, the Viant Dam disaster remains a subject of study, underscoring the dire consequences of human error and arrogance. Lingering questions revolve around the level of knowledge held by engineers and officials about the risks and the external pressures influencing fatal decisions. Aberfan Disaster, 1966, the consequence of corporate indifference. On October 21, 1966, the Welsh village of Aberfan faced an unimaginable tragedy. A catastrophic collapse of a coal-spoiled tip buried the Panglas Junior School and nearby houses, resulting in the loss of 144 lives, 116 of them children. Aberfan's catastrophe was not just an accident, but a preventable disaster that left profound wounds and unanswered inquiries. Looming coal-spoiled tips had long been a concern, with residents raising alarms before the disaster. Placed on unstable ground with underground springs, the tips showed signs of instability, which were disregarded. The coal board's indifference, economic reliance on mining, and governance failure raised questions about Aberfann's tragedy. Eyewitnesses recall a mass of debris, water, and mud hurtling down the hillside at terrifying speeds, burying the school within moments. Aberfann's community rallied in a desperate rescue effort, but the disaster became a symbol of negligence and revealed the dark side of the coal industry's history. Aberfan sat in the heart of South Wales coalfield, where the coal industry dominated life and landscape. The disaster uncovered negligence and a lack of regulations. Investigations pointed fingers at the National Coal Board, but debates persisted whether it was mere oversight or a systematic disregard for community safety. The aftermath saw Aberfan survivors seeking justice and accountability. Yet the fight for reparations was long and challenging. Government responses exacerbated the community's profound injury. Aberfan's struggle symbolized the battle against corporate negligence and governmental indifference, leading to stricter regulations for mines and spoil tips. Today, Aberfan remains a changed community, with memorials honoring lives lost. The disaster's legacy is embedded in regulations and oversights for mines and spoil tips. Unanswered questions persist about the preventability of the disaster and how to ensure human life takes precedence over economic interests. The Armero Tragedy, 1985. The Deadly Lahar. On the night of November 13, 1985, the small Colombian town of Armero was wiped off the map by a devastating volcanic lahar from the nearby Nevado del Ruiz volcano. An estimated 23,000 people, nearly two-thirds of Armero's population, perished in what became the deadliest volcanic disaster in the history of Colombia. But the tragedy of Armero was not just a natural disaster. It was a series of missed warnings and overlooked dangers that led to an unnecessary loss of life. When the volcano finally erupted, it wasn't the lava or the ash that caused the most destruction, but a massive lahar, a violent mixture of water, mud, and debris. As it thundered down the mountainside at high speeds, the lahar engulfed Armero and several other villages. Survivors recount the terrifying speed and power with which it struck, leaving little chance for escape. But could the path and impact of the lahar have been predicted or mitigated? Or was the town's fate sealed by its location on the volcano's vulnerable slopes? In the aftermath, the world was shocked by the images and stories from Armero. One of the most haunting was that of Omaira Sanchez, a young girl trapped in the debris and water, her ordeal lasting 3 days before she succumbed. Her story and the many others like it brought international attention to the tragedy. But behind each statistic are personal stories of loss, survival, and the human spirit facing unimaginable adversity. How did the survivors rebuild their lives? And what became of the community that once thrived in the shadow of Nevado del Ruiz? Investigations into the Armero tragedy painted a picture of a disaster that could have been prevented. The Colombian government, the local authorities, and even the residents themselves faced criticism for their roles in the catastrophe. The lack of preparedness, poor communication, and inadequate response measures all contributed to the scale of the tragedy. But was this a unique failure, or a system of a larger issue with disaster preparedness and response in vulnerable communities? Decades after the tragedy, Armero's story continues to raise important questions. How do we balance the risks of living in areas of natural beauty and resources with the potential for disaster? What lessons can be learned from Armero about listening to and acting on the warnings of scientists and experts? And how do we ensure that the lives lost in Armero and other disasters are not in vain, but serve to make us better prepared and more resilient in the face of natural calamities? The London Beer Flood, 1814, a brewing disaster. On October 17, 1814, a calamity struck London's St. Giles district when a beer vat at the Mew and Company brewery ruptured, releasing over 1.1 million liters of beer. This flood caused the destruction of 2 homes and claimed the lives of at least 8 individuals. While seemingly bizarre, this incident spotlighted the industrial practices and urban hazards of the time. The brewery, nestled in a densely populated and impoverished area, housed large vats used for fermenting porter. However, one vat's rupture triggered a chain reaction, causing others to fail. Speculation arose about poor construction, maintenance, or fundamental flaws in brewing technology. Questions lingered about the quality of materials used and pressures to maximize production in a competitive industry. As beer inundated streets, basements, and homes, it exposed the plight of the poor living in overcrowded conditions, particularly in flood-prone cellars. The disaster underscored concerns regarding urban planning, industrial regulations, and disparities between wealthy and impoverished residents. However, legal and financial outcomes saw the brewery exonerated, citing the incident as an act of God. This verdict raised doubts about justice served and the lessons overlooked. The London beer flood became legendary, but left an impact on brewery practices and regulations. Its true implications for the community and industry practices remain subjects of speculation. The incident's influence on the brewing industry and efforts to prevent similar disasters remain key topics of interest. The Morro Castle Fire, 1934, a voyage to disaster. On September 8, 1934, the luxury liner SS Morro Castle, en route from Havana to New York, was engulfed in flames, resulting in the deaths of 137 passengers and crew. The mysterious fire erupted in the ship's early morning hours, turning the vessel into a floating inferno. As the fire rapidly spread, the crew's response was disorganized and ineffective. Adding to the confusion was the mysterious death of the captain the night before, leaving a leadership vacuum. Despite the ship's state-of-the-art fire prevention and safety features, they catastrophically failed. Speculation regarding sabotage and arson surfaced due to the mysterious circumstances and inconclusive evidence. Survivors recounted harrowing experiences battling smoke and flames, with many forced to leap into the sea. Investigations were marred by inconsistencies, controversies, and key witnesses' mysterious deaths, raising questions about potential cover-ups or investigative incompetencies. Sabotage theories tied to political tensions of the era or insurance fraud schemes were suggested, albeit inconclusively. Suspicions fell on the ship's radio operator, George Rogers, with a history of arson, yet no definitive link to the fire emerged. The Morro Castle fire became a catalyst for maritime safety regulations, leading to improved fire prevention, crew training, and life-saving equipment on ships. However, the full truth behind the disaster remains partially submerged in mystery and speculation. The Grover Shoe Factory collapse, 1905. The cost of the industrial boom. On March 20th, Brockton, Massachusetts, witnessed a catastrophe when the Grover Shoe Factory, a local industrial hub, collapsed. The disaster killed 58 workers and injured over 150, unraveling questions about industrial safety, building practices, and workplace hazards. The factory, a 4-story structure bustling with machinery and workers, collapsed in seconds. Investigations revealed shocking oversights in its design and construction, with inadequate foundations and supports for the heavy machinery housed within. This negligence raised debates about workers' safety and structural integrity amid the rapid industrial growth of the era. The collapse represented 58 individual tragedies and raised concerns about the value placed on human life during the pursuit of industrial progress. The victims, predominantly young female workers, sparked calls for change, leading to legislative reforms and a push for greater safety standards in factories. However, the collapse remains a reminder of the perils of neglect and the importance of safeguarding workers' lives in industrial settings. The Teton Dam failure, 1976, a monumental disaster. On June 5, 1976, the newly constructed Teton Dam in southeastern Idaho catastrophically failed, resulting in the deaths of 11 individuals and causing over $1 billion in damage. This colossal disaster devastated local communities and farmlands, exposing concerns about modern engineering and construction. The earthen Teton Dam, chosen for cost-effectiveness and using local materials, faced integrity concerns since its construction's early stages. Geological surveys hinted at unstable foundations due to porous rock and soil in the area. Efforts to address seepage issues came too late, as the dam wall collapsed, unleashing a torrent that swept away homes and farmlands. The disaster prompted outrage and disbelief, leading to investigations highlighting geological issues, design flaws, and a lack of proper testing and safety standards. The Teton Dam failure exposed the dangers of underestimating nature and overestimating human control in engineering projects. It triggered changes in dam construction, monitoring, and maintenance protocols. Decades later, it remains a subject of study, emphasizing the imperative of prudence and vigilance in engineering endeavors. The Malpasset Dam failure, 1959, a catastrophic collapse. The catastrophic failure of the Malpasset Dam on December 2, 1959, near Fréjus on the French Riviera, was a devastating event that resulted in over 400 casualties, the destruction of numerous homes, and substantial damage to the town. This disaster, an unexpected and tragic occurrence, raised significant concerns and triggered inquiries into the engineering and construction of the dam, which was seen as a symbol of post-war reconstruction and technological advancement. The Malpasset Dam, designed as a thin double curvature arched dam, intended to blend strength with cost-effectiveness, faced initial apprehensions from the beginning of its construction. Geological studies had indicated potential instability in the rock foundations, and financial constraints led to compromises in design and material selection. These early warnings and economic considerations prompted debates about their role in the eventual failure of the dam. As heavy rainfall filled the reservoir close to its capacity, pressure mounted on the dam. Suddenly, in the evening of December 2nd, the dam collapsed, releasing a colossal 40-meter-high torrent towards Fréjus. The resulting flood was catastrophic, causing severe destruction along its path. Survivors grappled with the traumatic loss of homes and lives, yet understanding the precise reasons for the dam's failure remained elusive. Investigations into the disaster suggested several potential contributing factors, including geological instability, inadequate design, and unforeseen environmental conditions. speculations arose about the nature of the rock foundation, known for its faults and fissures, potentially being vulnerable under pressure. Some theories also considered the possibility of an underground landslide or seismic activity influencing the collapse. However, the loss of crucial records in the flood, coupled with technological limitations of the time, hindered delusions. The Malpasset Dam failure left a profound human toll, sparking debates about the responsibilities of engineers and officials. It served as a cautionary symbol, highlighting the dangers of ambitious infrastructure projects during periods of rapid development and reconstruction. The disaster also underscored the necessity of striking a balance between progress and prudence, acknowledging the immense power of nature while striving for technological advancement. Post-disaster, France implemented changes in dam construction and safety standards, emphasizing rigorous geological assessments and robust safety features. Nevertheless, broader questions persisted concerning risk management, accountability, and the delicate equilibrium between human development and environmental stewardship. Today, the remnants of the Malpasset Dam serve as a solemn reminder of the tragic event. The disaster's legacy prompts contemplation about humanity's attempts to control and respect the natural world. It stands as a compelling narrative urging deeper reflection, emphasizing the need to heed warning signs, and advocating for a more responsible approach towards technological advancements and environmental harmony. The Tangshan Earthquake, 1976, Seismic Secrets. On July 28, 1976, the city of Tangshan in China was struck by a catastrophic earthquake, ranking among the deadliest in recorded history. Official reports stated a death toll of approximately 242,000 individuals, though some estimates suggested a higher count. Various precursory signs, such as changes in groundwater levels and unusual animal behavior, were observed leading up to the earthquake. China had engaged in earthquake prediction research, prompting speculations about potential undisclosed information regarding the disaster's risk. The earthquake's occurrence, amidst the Cultural Revolution, exacerbated the challenges in governance and disaster response. The disruptive political climate during the Cultural Revolution hampered regular communication channels and governance protocols, affecting the administration's response to the calamity. Post-disaster allegations surfaced, accusing the government of understanding casualty figures for political motives. Tangshan's rebuilding and immediate relief efforts were shrouded in secrecy and propaganda. The Tangshan earthquake's impact was extensive, leading to significant changes in Chinese policies regarding disaster management, urban planning, and seismological studies. However, despite advancements in these fields, numerous questions persist regarding the disaster's true social, political, and scientific legacies. The earthquake stands as a poignant reminder of the intricate interplay between natural disasters, governance, and the complexities of disaster response and management in society. The Great Smog of London, 1952, Urban Vulnerability. In December 1952, London experienced the Great Smog, a severe air pollution event lasting 5 days. The smog resulted from a combination of frigid weather, stagnant air, and the widespread burning of high-sulfur coal. Official records initially estimated about 4,000 deaths, yet recent research suggests the death toll might have been closer to 12,000 due to respiratory and cardiovascular issues triggered by the smog's hazardous effects. The smog's lethality was attributed to specific weather patterns and the prevalent use of cheaper, more polluting coal, emphasizing the role of industrial policies and economic pressures in the disaster. In the aftermath, the government's delayed and initially downplayed response led to substantial criticism, eventually prompting significant environmental legislation such as the Clean Air Acts. Nonetheless, concerns lingered about the adequacy of these reforms and their timelines. The Great Smog not only had immediate health repercussions, but also long-term impacts on survivors, resulting in increased rates of chronic health conditions. Moreover, it raised questions about psychological and social effects, highlighting the broader implications of environmental catastrophes on society. The event remains relevant today, serving as a warning about the perilous consequences of environmental negligence and a testament to the need for vigilant environmental policies in modern cities. The Bola Cyclone, 1970, Legacy of a Storm. The Bola Cyclone, striking East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, and West Bengal on November 12, 1970, became the deadliest tropical cyclone in recorded history, claiming an estimated 300,000 to 500,000 lives. It devastated coastal areas with its powerful storm surge, wiping out entire villages and leaving millions homeless. Despite meteorological offices tracking its progress, inadequate warnings and preparation amplified the cyclone's impact, raising questions about the political climate and its influence on disaster response. The cyclone's aftermath exposed grossly insufficient relief efforts, aggravating existing political tensions and contributing to the Bangladesh Liberation War in 1971. Beyond the immediate loss of life, the cyclone caused prolonged environmental effects, salinating agricultural land and reshaping landscapes. This catastrophic event led to substantial changes in cyclone warning systems and disaster management, prompting global reconsideration of disaster response strategies. However, it also highlighted ongoing shortcomings in global disaster preparedness, especially in vulnerable regions facing climate change-related extreme weather events. The Bola cyclone remains emblematic of the vulnerability of populations to natural disasters and the compounding effects of political neglect and mismanagement in the face of calamities. It stands as a powerful reminder of the necessity for proactive disaster preparedness, international collaboration, and an empathetic response to the inevitability of future catastrophes. The Centralia Mine Fire, 1962 to present day, the enduring inferno. The Centralia Mine Fire, ignited in 1962 in Pennsylvania, continues to burn beneath the town, resulting in the near-complete evacuation of the community. The cause of the fire, officially attributed to a trash fire igniting a coal seam, remains disputed and speculative. There are alternative theories about the fire's origin. Some locals suggest it had been smoldering before 1962 due to spontaneous combustion in the mine, while others highlight extensive mining tunnels and lax regulations contributing to the disaster. The combination of natural coal seam properties, human activity, and potentially overlooked signs might have contributed to the relentless fire. Unlike sudden disasters, the Centralia fire unfolded gradually over years, displaying subtle initial signs such as dead trees and carbon monoxide in basements. This prolonged timeline complicated the response, causing fear, uncertainty, and the eventual evacuation of most residents. The response to the Centralia fire faced bureaucratic challenges, inadequate funding, and a lack of urgency from state and federal agencies. The economic and land value considerations possibly influenced the government's inadequate response. Some residents remain in Centralia, highlighting the human attachment to home, despite impending danger and governmental claims over the town through eminent domain. Centralia serves as a cautionary tale about environmental management in old mining regions. It has also become a tourist attraction, reminding society of the unseen dangers in such areas. The disaster raises questions about long-term disaster management, residents' rights, and implications of mining and fossil fuel dependency. The undying fire beneath Centralia is a reminder of the far-reaching consequences of industrial activity and the intricate relationship between a community and its environment. The fire's persistence reflects the enduring spirit of the town's few remaining residents, speaking to the resilience of nature and the human resolve. In the enduring smoke and steam of Centralia, essential questions emerge about responsibility, environmental stewardship, and the lingering repercussions of past actions. The Halifax Slasher Panic, 1938. Phantom Menace. In November 1938, Halifax, England, experienced a panic due to reported attacks by an unidentified Halifax slasher. Over 9 days, numerous residents reported being attacked by an unseen assailant, creating hysteria, vigilantism, and suspicion within the community. Victims reported being slashed with knives or razors, inciting high alert among police, the press, and the public. However, as investigations progressed, inconsistencies and contradictions emerged in victim testimonies. Eventually, it was discovered that most, if not all, attacks were hoaxes or self-inflicted injuries, raising questions about the societal and psychological climate of Halifax at the time. The panic occurred amidst economic depression and social unrest, potentially fueling the readiness of residents to believe in the slasher narrative. Psychologists and historians suggest it was a manifestation of broader societal fears, a form of mass hysteria stemming from economic and political anxieties. The role of the media was significant, with newspapers amplifying panic and influencing victim behavior. The Halifax slasher incident sheds light on the media's power in shaping collective fears and relates to modern instances of moral panic and sensationalism. The town grappled with the psychological aftermath of the panic, leading to injuries, community division, and heavy consumption of police resources. The incident prompted contemplation on fear, crowd psychologically, and the fine line between reality and imagination. The Halifax slasher panic remains a study of mass hysteria and societal dynamics. It prompts reflection on human psychologically, societal pressures, and the ways in which fears can shape and be shaped by the world. It stands as a testament to the complexity of trust, truth, and the intricacies of the human mind. The Cedar Orjo Mudflow, 2006 to present, Lucy's Flow. In May 2006, the Cedar Orjo Mudflow emerged from Cedar Orjo, Java, after a drilling incident by PT Lapindo Brantas, an oil and gas company. There is contention over whether the mudflow was triggered by the drilling without adequate safety precautions, or a distant earthquake destabilizing the region, leading to scientific, legal, and political debates. The mudflow submerged villages, displaced thousands, and caused severe environmental damage, polluting air and water sources. Beyond physical devastation, it caused significant social and economic turmoil, resulting in long-term psychological trauma for displaced residents. The cause controversy holds legal and financial implications, with PT Lapindo Brantas potentially facing substantial liabilities if deemed responsible. The Indonesian government's handling of the disaster aftermath, including compensation and resettlement issues, has faced criticism, making justice elusive for the affected. Efforts to stop or contain the mud flow have been largely ineffective, with temporary solutions posing environmental risks. The Ceto Arjo mud flow poses a significant challenge for engineers and scientists, representing a long-term environmental disaster with intergenerational impacts for the region. The Ceto Arjo mud flow highlights the risks of industrial activities and the necessity for stringent safety and environmental measures. It serves as a case study in disaster response complexities, particularly in developing countries with limited resources. The ongoing plight of Ceto Arjo's displaced residents underscores the human toll of industrial accidents, emphasizing the need for accountability and justice. The relentless flow of the Ceto Arjo mud is a stark reminder of industrial risks and the imperative for stringent environmental protections. It raises urgent, unresolved questions about human responsibility, environmental stewardship, and the balance between development and risk. The mudflow serves as a global cautionary tale about human influence on Earth, urging a deeper understanding of unleashed forces and their implications for the future. The Jonestown Massacre, 1978. The Death of the Faithful. On November 18, 1978, in a remote settlement known as Jonestown in Guyana, over 900 members of the People's Temple, led by Jim Jones, died in what is commonly referred to as a mass suicide. However, many consider it was a mass murder, as not all members willingly consumed the cyanide-laced punch. This event stands as one of the most horrific and puzzling mass deaths in modern history, raising profound questions about human psychology, power, and vulnerability. Jim Jones, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, had established the People's Temple to promote a utopian society based on principles of equality, social justice, and community. However, behind the facade of this noble vision lay a darker reality of manipulation, abuse, and authoritarian control. What psychological mechanisms did Jones employ to exert such powerful influence over his followers? How did his message evolve from one of hope to one of doom? The move from California to the isolated jungles of Guyana was a significant step in the People's Temple's journey towards tragedy. In Jonestown, far from the scrutiny of the outside world, Jones's control over his followers intensified. The move from California to the isolated jungles of Guyana was a significant step in the People's Temple's journey towards tragedy. In Jonestown, far from the scrutiny of the outside world, Jones' control over his followers intensified. What drove the collective to follow him into isolation, and how did this physical and psychological seclusion contribute to the eventual catastrophe? The events of November 18th were precipitated by a visit from U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan, who was investigating claims of abuse within the People's Temple. The visit ended in violence, with Ryan and several others shot at a nearby airstrip. Shortly afterwards, Jones orchestrated the mass poisoning, but amidst this narrative, there are unsettling questions. Were there external pressures or threats that contributed to the sense of siege within Jonestown? What was the role of Jones's inner circle in planning and executing the tragedy? In the aftermath of the massacre, the world struggled to understand how such a tragedy could occur. The scale of the death and the stories of those who escaped paint a harrowing picture of manipulation, desperation, and loss. But many questions remain. How much were the members aware of the final plan, and how many were coerced? What, if any, external factors influenced the events leading up to the massacre? The Jonestown Massacre left a lasting impact on public consciousness, reshaping ideas about cults, religious movements, and the potential for tragedy within isolated communities. It also prompted changes in how such groups are monitored and managed. However, the deeper lessons about human nature, power, and the need for belonging continue to provoke thought and debate. How do we balance the rights of religious and communal groups with the need to protect vulnerable members? What can Jonestown teach us about the darker aspects of charisma and leadership? As we delve into the shadows of Jonestown, we are confronted not just with a story of death and destruction, but with a complex web of psychological, social, and historical threads. It is a narrative that compels us to look beyond the sensationalized aspects of the tragedy to understand the human stories and societal factors that culminated in such a profound and disturbing event. Jonestown remains a stark reminder of the potential for darkness in the pursuit of utopia and the need for vigilance and understanding in preventing future tragedies. The RMS Empress of Ireland sinking, 1914. Tragedy in the fog. On May 29, 1914, the RMS Empress of Ireland met a tragic fate. Colliding with the SS Storstad in the St. Lawrence River, the ship sank rapidly, taking 1,012 lives with it. This maritime disaster, occurring just 2 years after the Titanic, stands as one of the most devastating of its time, yet it remains overshadowed in historical memory. As the Empress of Ireland and the Storstad traversed the foggy waters, their paths fatally crossed. The official inquiry placed the blame on the Storstad, but subsequent discussions and alternative theories have pointed to possible miscommunications and navigational errors. The dense fog of that night has left a lasting fog of uncertainty over the exact sequence of events. At the time of the sinking, maritime technology and safety measures were evolving, yet they were far from foolproof. Questions remain about the adequacy of the Empress of Ireland's design and the effectiveness of its watertight compartments. Additionally, the decision-making of the captains and crew on both ships has been scrutinized. How did human judgment and the technological standards of the time contribute to the disaster? The rapid sinking left little time for an orderly evacuation, and the cold waters claimed hundreds of lives. The stories of those who survived and those who perished paint a vivid picture of panic, bravery, and tragedy. The personal losses experienced that night rippled through families and communities, leaving a legacy of grief and resilience. In the wake of the disaster, inquiries sought to understand what had happened and how similar tragedies could be prevented in the future. The sinking of the Empress of Ireland led to changes in maritime safety regulations and ship design. However, the impact of these changes and the lessons learned from the tragedy continue to be subjects of discussion. Despite its scale, the Empress of Ireland's sinking has not ingrained itself in public memory as deeply as other maritime disasters. Why has this event, so catastrophic and momentous, been relegated to a footnote in history? How do collective memory and cultural narratives determine which events are remembered and which are forgotten? As we delve deeper into the story of the RMS Empress of Ireland, we are confronted with a complex interplay of factors that led to its demise. This disaster is a poignant reminder of the vulnerabilities of early 20th century maritime travel and the human cost of technological and navigational shortcomings. The sinking, though not as widely commemorated as other maritime tragedies, offers crucial insights into the nature of human error, the relentless forces of nature, and the fragile line between safety and catastrophe in the quest to conquer the seas. The Great Boston Fire, 1872, Sparks of Mystery. On November 9, 1872, a devastating fire erupted in Boston, Massachusetts, becoming one of the most destructive in the city's history. Over 2 days, the blaze consumed about 65 acres of downtown Boston, destroying hundreds of buildings and causing millions of dollars in damage. But beyond the immediate destruction, the Great Boston Fire opened a Pandora's box of controversy, speculation, and reform. The fire reportedly started in a commercial warehouse, but the exact cause was never conclusively determined. Was it a simple accident, negligence, or something more nefarious? Theories abounded, with some suggesting arson or a cover-up. The lack of a clear origin story has fed into the enduring mystery surrounding the fire. At the time, Boston's building practices and fire prevention measures were criticized for being inadequate. The city's narrow streets and densely packed wooden buildings provided the perfect fuel for the fire. But why were these risky conditions allowed to persist? And what does this tell us about the city's priorities and governance at the time? As the fire raged, efforts to extinguish it were hampered by inadequate water supply, outdated firefighting equipment, and the fire's sheer intensity. The human toll was relatively low, but the financial impact was colossal. The fire reshaped Boston's commercial district and left an undeniable mark on its citizens. How did the city recover, and what were the long-term economic and psychological impacts? In the wake of the fire, Boston and other cities re-examined their fire codes and building practices. The disaster spurred innovations in firefighting and urban planning. However, the extent and speed of these changes have been subjects of debate. How did vested interests and political inertia shape the post-fire reforms, and what lessons were learned or ignored? Unlike some other historical fires, the Great Boston Fire of 1872 doesn't occupy a prominent place in the collective memory. Why has this event, so catastrophic in its time, faded into the background? How do we decide which historical events to remember and which to overlook? The Great Boston Fire serves as a stark reminder of the potential for disaster in rapidly growing urban centers. As modern cities face their own challenges of infrastructure, safety, and governance, what can the story of the Boston Fire teach us about preventing and responding to urban disasters? The Great Boston Fire of 1872 is more than just a historical footnote. It is a complex narrative of urban growth, human error, and the struggle to learn from disaster. As we explore the ashes of the past, we are confronted with questions about responsibility, resilience, and the delicate balance between progress and safety. The fire's legacy, though not as widely commemorated as other disasters, offers crucial insights into the challenges of managing and protecting our urban environments, both in the 19th century and today. I will provide a comprehensive and detailed exploration of the Texas City disaster of 1947, ensuring the entry is befitting of the penultimate level of the iceberg, with a focus on the obscure, controversial, and deeply complex aspects of the event. The Texas City disaster, 1947, chain reaction of horror. On April 16, 1947, the SS Grand Camp, docked in Texas City, Texas, was loaded with a deadly cargo of ammonium nitrate. This bustling port, vital to the post-war industrial boom, was unaware that it was sitting on the brink of one of the worst industrial disasters in U.S. history. The fire that broke out aboard the SS Grand Camp and led to the catastrophic explosion has been subject to much speculation. Official reports cite a fire of unknown origin, possibly a cigarette, but deeper investigations and rumors suggest a more complex set of circumstances, including potential sabotage or overlooked safety violations. The lack of concrete answers leaves a space filled with haunting questions. The explosion of the SS Grand Camp was a disaster of monumental proportions. The blast obliterated the ship, triggered further fires and explosions, including that of the nearby SS High Flyer, and devastated the surrounding area. The shockwave was felt miles away, windows shattered in distant towns, and a towering mushroom cloud marked the site of the tragedy. The enormity of the blast suggests more than just an accidental fire. It speaks to systematic failures and possibly ignored risks. The official death toll stands at nearly 600, with thousands injured. But beyond the numbers lay countless stories of loss, bravery, and the human spirit facing adversity. The disaster response, including the efforts of local residents, medical personnel, and aid from across the nation, was a testament to solidarity and resilience. However, it also highlighted serious gaps in disaster preparedness and emergency response, especially in industrial settings. The aftermath of the Texas City disaster saw one of the most extensive disaster investigations of the time. The inquiry sought to understand the causes and assign responsibility. However, amidst the legal battles and testimonies, many felt that the true depth of culpability was never fully acknowledged. Questions about regulatory oversight, industrial safety standards, and the handling of hazardous materials led to some changes, but did they go far enough? The Texas City disaster left a long shadow, not just on the town itself, but on the wider world. It spurred changes in safety regulations and emergency response strategies. However, the disaster also became a case study in the potential dangers of industrial complacency and the need for vigilance. The haunting images and stories from Texas City serve as a grim reminder of the stakes involved in managing industrial hazards. Despite the official inquiry and past time, the Texas City disaster still harbors unanswered questions and speculative theories. The full extent of the negligence, potential cover-ups, or ignored warnings remain a subject of inquiry and debate. The disaster's complex nature and the lack of definitive answers have led to a legacy of speculation and a quest for deeper understanding. The Texas City disaster of 1947, with its intricate web of human error, systemic failure, and tragic aftermath, offers a profound case study in the potential consequences of industrial neglect and the enduring need for a commitment to safety and justice. As we delve into this dark chapter of history, we are reminded of the importance of looking beneath the surface, questioning accepted narratives, and learning from the past to safeguard our future. The Great Fire of Meriki, 1657, flames over Edo. In the early months of 1657, a catastrophic fire, known as the Great Fire of Meriki, swept through Edo, modern-day Tokyo, lasting for 3 days and causing unparalleled destruction. It is estimated that over half the city was burned, and tens of thousands of lives were lost. But what sparked this devastating event, and what hidden factors contributed to its ferocity? The fire reportedly began in a shop selling paper and oils, materials highly susceptible to fire. However, there are speculative accounts and folklore about the fire's true origin, including rumors of arson or divine retribution. The full circumstances leading to the ignition remain a blend of historical fact and myth, each adding layers to the fire's enigmatic nature. Edo was a city built largely of wood, with houses and buildings crowded together, creating a continuous stretch of flammable material. Additionally, the city's firefighting measures were rudimentary at best. But beyond these obvious risks, were there other, less apparent conditions that made the city particularly vulnerable to such a widespread conflagration? The Great Fire of Mareki didn't just reshape the physical landscape of Edo. It led to profound changes in urban planning, building regulations, and fire prevention strategies. The disaster also had a significant cultural impact, influencing art, literature, and the collective psyche of the city's inhabitants. How did the fire alter the course of the city's history, and what lessons were learned or ignored in its aftermath? Behind the staggering statistics of destruction are countless stories of personal loss, heroism, and survival. Accounts from the time describe scenes of chaos and desperation, but also of communal support and resilience. How did the people of Edo cope with the disaster, and how did their experiences influence the city's recovery and future? In the wake of the Great Fire of Mareki, authorities and citizens alike sought to understand and respond to the catastrophe. Investigations and reflections of the time focused on practical measures to prevent future fires, but they also ventured into philosophical and spiritual explanations for why such a disaster occurred. How did these inquiries and debates shape the city's policies and the people's beliefs? While not as widely commemorated or studied as other historical disasters, the Great Fire of Mareki holds a significant place in the history of Tokyo and fire management. Its legacy is seen in the city's strict building codes and advanced firefighting capabilities. But beyond these tangible effects, the fire serves as a reminder of the ever-present threat of urban conflagrations and the need for constant vigilance. The Great Fire of Mareki, with its blend of historical fact, speculation, and cultural impact, offers a window into a world where urban growth, social structures, and human vulnerabilities collided with devastating results. As we explore this event from the depths of history, we are reminded of the complex interplay between human societies and the forces of nature, and the enduring lessons that such tragedies can teach us. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire, 1911, a factory disaster. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire occurred on March 25, 1911, in New York City, claiming the lives of 146 workers, predominantly young immigrant women. This catastrophe spotlighted severe labor conditions and societal values of the time. Survivors revealed that the factory's doors were locked from the outside, a common practice to prevent theft and unauthorized breaks. This detail underscored widespread negligence and exploitation within the early 20th century labor practices. The public outcry post-fire resulted in comprehensive reforms in labor laws and safety standards, marking a pivotal moment in the American labor rights movement. Nevertheless, these reforms faced strong opposition from industrialists and others resistant to change. Some theories suggested the fire was an insurance scam orchestrated by the factory owners. Though these claims were unsubstantiated, they echoed broader societal attitudes towards industrial catastrophes and economic pressures of the time. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire compels a reckoning with the human cost of unchecked industrialization and the ethics of prioritizing profit over the lives of marginalized groups. It prompts contemplation about necessary societal changes to protect the vulnerable. The disaster's legacy continues to shape labor rights discourse and safety regulations. However, similar tragedies in contemporary times, often in developing nations, indicate that the lessons of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory have not been universally heeded. The fire remains a stark reminder of the perils of negligence, exploitation, and uncontrolled industrial expansion. It highlights the enduring necessity for vigilance, compassion, and a commitment to justice in the face of societal and economic pressures. The Boston Molasses Disaster, 1919, A Sweet Sorrow. The Boston Molasses Disaster occurred on January 15, 1919, when a storage tank holding over 2 million gallons of molasses burst in Boston's North End. The resulting wave of molasses, moving at about 35 miles per hour, led to the deaths of 21 individuals and substantial property damage. Investigations into the tank's failure revealed structural flaws and poor construction, reflecting negligence, ignored warnings, and potential attempts to evade accountability. The disaster coincided with a time of social upheaval, generating speculations about sabotage amidst World War I and the Red Scare. Most victims were residents and workers of the North End, an immigrant neighborhood. This bizarre event sheds light on the genuine human tragedy behind the disaster, raising questions about societal valuations of working class and immigrant lives. The ensuing legal battle resulted in Massachusetts establishing new construction and inspection standards. However, the broader implications for corporate accountability and industrial safety remained ambiguous. The Boston Molasses Disaster, often remembered with a mix of astonishment and horror, teaches lessons about industrialization's dangers and the unexpectedness of catastrophic events. It influences our understanding of industrial disasters and emphasizes the importance of preventing such tragedies. Despite its peculiar nature, the event underscores real issues and challenges. Maintaining the relevance of the Boston Molasses Disaster's lessons is crucial to honor the lives lost and continue efforts to comprehend and prevent similar calamities. The Great Smog of Donora, 1948, The Suffocating Haze. The Donora smog disaster occurred in late October 1948 in Donora, Pennsylvania. The toxic smog, a mixture of industrial pollution and weather conditions, led to 20 deaths and severe health issues for thousands, highlighting the dangers of air pollution and the need for regulation. Donora's economy heavily relied on steel mills and a zinc plant, contributing to its prosperity but also emitting significant pollutants. The disaster prompted inquiries into the balance between industrial growth and public health amid economic dependencies and industrial priorities. The smog revealed the visible manifestation of typically invisible air pollution, exposing the community's health risks. It underscores the challenge of addressing the less overt, chronic aspects of environmental health risks. The Donora disaster spurred moments for clean air regulations, leading to the Clean Air Act and other environmental protections. However, industries resistant to change posed opposition, highlighting the shifts in national attitudes and policies regarding environmental health. The catastrophe raises ethical questions about prioritizing human health and life against economic and industrial growth. It compels considerations about industries and governments' moral obligations to protect communities reliant on them. Preserving the memory and lessons of the Donora disaster remains crucial in modern society's environmental and industrial challenges. It highlights the significance of remembering and learning from the past disasters to guide future decisions and actions. The Gleno Dam Collapse, 1923, The Flaws That Sealed Fate. On December 1st, 1923, the Gleno Dam, located in the Erba Valley in Italy, catastrophically failed, unleashing a torrent of water that devastated the towns below. The collapse resulted in the loss of at least 356 lives and widespread destruction. This tragedy was not merely an engineering failure. It was a stark testament to the dangers of hubris and the lack of oversight in the burgeoning field of dam construction. The Gleno Dam's design and construction were fraught with issues, including changes from a curved to a straight axis structure and the use of substandard materials. Reports suggest that warnings about the dam's stability were ignored or minimized by those in charge. How did the combination of technical arrogance, economic pressures, and regulatory failures contribute to this disaster? In the aftermath of the collapse, investigations sought to uncover the reasons behind the dam's failure and to hold responsible parties accountable. However, the complexity of the technical issues, coupled with the political and social climate of the time, meant that the lines of responsibility were blurred. What does the Gleno Dam collapse tell us about the challenges of ensuring accountability in large-scale engineering projects? The disaster raises profound ethical questions about the cost of technological and industrial advancement. It compels us to reflect on the value society places on human life and safety compared to the pursuit of progress and economic benefit. How do we balance the need for development with the imperative to protect and preserve life? While the Gleno Dam collapse led to some changes in engineering practices and regulatory oversight, it remains a relatively obscure event. Its lessons are crucial in a world where the drive for bigger and more complex structures continues unabated. How do we ensure that the lessons from Gleno are learned and remembered, not just by engineers and policymakers, but by all who depend on the integrity of such structures? As we continue to push the boundaries of engineering and technology, the story of the Gleno Dam is a reminder of the potential consequences of overreach and complacency. It challenges us to consider how we might better anticipate and mitigate the risks of large-scale engineering projects in an increasingly complex and interconnected world. The Gleno Dam collapse, with its tragic loss of life and lasting implications for engineering and society, stands as a poignant reminder of the need for humility, vigilance, and a commitment to safety and ethical responsibility in our quest to harness the natural world. As we delve into this dark chapter of history, we are reminded of the importance of learning from the past to safeguard our future.